So that's the cat this ship is named after, huh?
That's right, Mrs. Rogo. The great god Poseidon. In Greek mythology, the god of the seas, also god of storms, tempests, earthquakes, and other miscellaneous natural disasters. Quite an ill-tempered fellow. Yes.
Sorry to disturb you, Captain. Please come to the bridge.
Right. What is it, Lookout?
On the port bow. I don't know. I never saw anything like it.
Oh, my God. There must be mountains.
Jesus Christ, what happened?
We've turned over.
Any rescue attempt would have to come through the hull.
We are at most several hours from rescue.
Nobody's gonna help us except ourselves.
These ships weren't designed to stay afloat upside down.
But I am going to find my daughter, and don't for 1 second think you can stop me.
That's the way out. That's our only chance.
Come on, think it found a way.
The cat don't fit in there. We don't even know where he goes.
If we stay here, we drown. No, wait a minute. What's this up here?
Who do you think you are, God himself?
There's nothing fair about who lives and dies.
God wants brave souls. Resolve to let God know that you have the guts and the will to do it alone. Resolve to fight for yourselves and for others and for those you love.
To be a morning after, if we can hold on through the night, we have a chance to find the sunshine.
The Poseidon Adventure is a 1969 novel by Paul Gallico. It tells the story of the capsizing of the ocean liner SS Poseidon and a group of survivors trying to make their way to the hull and escape before the ship sinks. The story was supposedly inspired by the real-life event of the near capsizing of the Queen Mary during World War II. In 1970, Universal Pictures released the film Airport, and it became one of the most successful films of the decade. There had been disaster movies before.
Can you fly this airplane and land it?
But during the 1970s, it would become a real craze, and it would end up being the golden age of the disaster film. In 1972, producer Irwin Allen, who would become known as the Master of Disaster, and director Ronald Neame, created one of the most popular films of the disaster genre, The Poseidon Adventure. The SS Poseidon is making its final voyage heading from New York to Athens, before being turned into scrap. On midnight, New Year's Eve, a rogue wave capsizes it. And then the fun begins. A small band of survivors led by Gene Hackman's rebellious Reverend Scott attempt to make an escape by making their way to the hull of the ship. Along the way they face explosions, fire, and the ever-rising water. We're on the edge of our seats to see who will survive. The Poseidon Adventure is a really fun film. It's not exactly high art, but it's very effective for what it is. It's very rudimentary in its structure. Introduce the main characters, make clear their motivations, Then you start flooding the ship. And all of it's very entertaining. It's aged pretty well. This was an epic production at the time, and it blew audiences away. But even today, all the upside-down sets, the stunts, even the miniatures, they still keep me riveted and sell the idea that these characters are in this upside-down ship.
Get the hell out of this.
You get your ass down here with us, mister, right away.
Hey, you ought to watch your language, preacher. You sound like you come from the slum or something.
The thing about disaster movies are not only the life-threatening situations the characters are placed in, but the dynamics happening between each of them, which is one of the things that sets the Poseidon Adventure apart from the majority of disaster films. Even in crappy films, I always love Hackman, and here he's given a nice juicy role with plenty of speeches, action, and a lot of yelling. He assumes this leader position and really doesn't shy away from making the hard decisions and pushing these people. His behavior might look strange and abrasive, but thanks to his setup establishing his unorthodox beliefs, his character makes sense and I really start to like this guy. The rest of the survivors are played by a crop of actors that were more on the B-list at the time. You'd probably be more likely to see them on Hollywood Squares than a big-budget movie. They each have their own little quirks going on, and as with disaster film rules, things have to quiet down every now and we get some drama between them. Rogo and Linda, the married cop and ex-prostitute who continuously argue. Belle and Manny, the older couple who are on their way to see their grandson. Akers, the injured Scottish ship steward. Martin, the bachelor haberdasher who makes a connection with the shell-shocked singer Nani. Susan, who has a crush on our good reverend. And her brother Robin, who seems like he's enjoying himself way too much with this adventure. Some of this works better than others. The film gets pretty soap opera-y and melodramatic at times. Hackman and Borgnine really get over the top with their performances at points, and it makes some of their scenes giggle-worthy. Just like in Superfuzz, Borgnine's performance mainly consists of yelling.
Come on, what are you doing up there? Taking a coffee break? Move it, move it! Well, this is no goddamn engine room! We've been wasting time sitting here while we should have been up front with those other people. Like hell she will. What the hell does she think she's doing?
You don't have to shout.
I said
Hey, he's really good at that.
They're wrong. The bell's underwater! How do you know? Have you seen it? What makes you so damn sure about everything?
But he actually makes some pretty good arguments against Hackman. Fortunately, the weak stuff doesn't last too long, and we get back to the suspense and the thrills and the wait to see who buys it next. Ironically, despite some of the weaker dialogue scenes, I still like all these characters, and I do want to see them all make it out of the ship alive. And that's always a good thing with any disaster movie. One thing I always liked about this film is the kid, Robin. Normally kids in these movies are sort of baggage that needs protecting, and that's the extent of their participation in the group. Check out the remake.
Will you please take me and my mom?
But here, after all the sneaking around the kid has done on the ship, he becomes the group's navigator at points.
Robin, you were saying that Broadway leased the engine room. How do you know that?
Well, that's the way I went with my engineer friend. He called it Broadway when he took me down to see the boilers.
Well, that's it then.
Wait a minute, you gonna take his word for it?
Why not?
Because he's just a kid, that's why not.
Sure, he gets his needs to be saved scene, but he's a lot less annoying than usual movie kids. This group is a nice mix of strength and weakness. We got some characters up in age, some injured. Shelley Winters got a lot of attention for being the overweight ex-swimmer. This adventure is a real endurance test for a lot of these characters. Overall, very good film. Nice action, fun characters, some impressive sets, an effective score by John Williams, 2 chicks in hot pants, and Ernest Borgnine in a funny hat. What's not to like? After the Poseidon Adventure became a humongous worldwide hit, it helped cement the fact audiences were really keen on seeing movie stars, along with their B-actor co-stars, get engulfed in flames, fall off buildings, sink in the ocean, have big things crush them, scream in terror, and try their best to survive the worst catastrophes filmmakers could come up with. The disaster movie craze was on, and the formula was let loose on countless settings. I think every sort of disaster scenario got used. I don't think they left anything out. By 1980, the disaster fad had run its course. Some of these flicks towards the end of this cycle, they are pretty awful.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
In 1980, with the release of Airplane, it would help put an end to this trend of disaster movies. It spoofed all the overused conventions the genre was known for. Airplane would mark the final blow to ending the most illustrious and popular run of the disaster film.
Never let you go, so never let me go. I will be a journey and you will be my road.
Not extinct, just dormant, as in sleeping.
When trumpets were mellow and every gal only had one fellow, no need to remember when, 'cause everything old is new again.
If it can't be stopped, all life on Earth will perish.
Please stay calm.
White suit, your top hat and tail, and put it in backwards when forward fail, and leave Greta Garbo alone, be a movie star.
Now with the disaster genre enjoying a rebirth, audiences were once again treated to seeing actors and extras try to survive epic catastrophes. Now, thanks to new special effects, the disaster spectacle was given a 21st century facelift. But they were basically the same old premise. Actors trying their best to survive life-threatening disaster scenarios. The Poseidon Adventure would not just be treated to one remake, but two. In 2005, there was a made-for-TV movie. That one was pretty bad. But the more famous is the big-budget remake that came out the following year. Look at that, 1 year between versions of the same story. It's pretty odd. I actually had some hope for this remake when I heard Wolfgang Petersen was directing it. Petersen directed possibly the greatest submarine movie ever. So I thought this remake of Poseidon could be good. I was wrong. Poseidon sticks with the disaster formula by first introducing our main characters. And I thought they were much less likable and sympathetic than the original group. Kurt Russell is the former mayor of New York and an ex-fireman who is overly strict with his daughter and is intimidating towards her boyfriend. Josh Lucas as some kind of professional gambler or adventure guy. And by the way, how did he get his name over Kurt Russell's in the credits? Is he really a bigger star than Kurt today? Richard Dreyfuss as a gay suicidal architect. Then we got Maggie and her son Connor. Elena, a stowaway on board heading to see her brother in New York. Lucky Larry, an obnoxious guy. Okay, there's our group. Oh, and Fergie sings a bit and is killed pretty quickly. When I first saw her, I thought it was supposed to be some kind of Charo homage or something. But then I remembered Charo wasn't in the original Poseidon Adventure. So I guess they just wanted to lure Fergie fans to go see this. There's really no build-up to the wave sequence. It just kind of happens really fast. The film feels very rushed. It's like it never slows down long enough to develop any tension. It's just, here are the characters, here's the wave, here's some drowning, here's some bodies, let's get on with this, come on, move it. The capsizing sequence is decent. There's a couple of good CGI effects to it. After I watched the entire movie, though, I started to suspect this was the only reason they wanted to remake this movie. So like the original, we join our group who are all headed to the hull and hope to be rescued. They don't invite anyone else to join them, by the way.
Hey, Mom, are we going with them?
Yeah, baby, let's go.
So either they're not as confident about this plan as Hackman was, who was trying to convince everyone to join him, thinking it would save their lives.
The sea is going to keep pouring in. We're going to keep settling deeper and deeper. We may even go under before we get up to the bottom to cut our way out. But it's something to try. It's a chance. We might make it. If you stay here, you'll certainly die.
Or maybe this new group are just indifferent to what happens to everyone else in that ballroom. They're already coming off as cold-hearted, selfish bastards. The big problem with this film are the characters. The people I'm supposed to be rooting for to make it out of here, I don't like. Soon into their expedition of the upside-down ship, Dylan and Richard have a predicament involving the busboy, Valentine.
Take him off! Take him off! No! We won't die! No! I'm so sorry!
So Dylan tells Richard to kill him, and Richard does. I initially thought this was going to be something Richard was going to be dealing with throughout the film. A half hour ago, he wanted to kill himself. But now he kills this poor guy so he can live. That has the makings for guilt and some heavy drama. But no, it's never touched on. So Richard tags along, and the whole time I was hoping he would get his original wish and buy it. And Dylan, he's supposed to be the hero, right? And so he callously tells Richard to kick him off. That wasn't very nice. It's a really strange scene. Plus, immediately, they kill off the one guy who knows the ship. That would have at least provided someone else in the group something to do. Be the navigator. Instead, all the focus shifts back on super athlete and leader Josh Lucas, and the rest of the pack just follow him. The film tries to recover and attempts to remind us that Dylan is supposed to be heroic when he saves Connor, and risks his life to save the others. But all that was too late for me. I didn't want this guy to live. Jennifer and Christian are young and in love. That's it. There's really nothing else to their characters. I don't even know why they bothered giving them names. I think Jennifer just loves Christian because he's hunky or something. The only two things they ever talk about is her father and that they're in love. If it wasn't for Kurt Russell, I don't think they would have anything in common. She doesn't like her father, and he's scared of him. That's great grounds for a romance. They're a real boring pair. I wish both of them would drown. Maggie and Connor. Damn, man, could they make these people any more boring? This is the kind of stuff that I would love to be able to calculate how much time was spent writing for these two characters compared to the time spent creating a CGI wave sequence. They're so dull. Mother and son. The son disappears every now and then, so the mother can yell,
"Oh, not again, Connor!"
Let him sink. Lucky Larry is the only one who seems willing to shake things up and cause excitement in this group, but he's kind of portrayed as a bad guy. Unfortunately, the film kills him off way too early for that to happen. I wish he had lived. Then Kurt Russell. I like Kurt Russell, but here he blends in with the rest of these forgettable characters. He's an ex-mayor? Why? What's the deal with the mayor thing? I don't get it. I didn't understand why they would make him an ex-fireman, too. It just seems too on the nose for this situation. Like making Dylan some adventurer guy. It would be a bit more dramatic seeing people who've never come close to being in a situation like this before trying to overcome it. Make these two something different, like a banker and a TV repairman or something. And then they make Dreyfus an architect for no reason.
I'm an architect. These ships weren't designed to stay afloat upside down.
And you would think that would be a beneficial person to have along. But that never comes into play. Yeah, don't add anything to this group, Richie. Just follow along blindly with the rest of them. That's it. Come along. Take your time. That's it. Be worthless too. While watching this, the one word that I kept thinking about was hurried. It's like the film doesn't want to slow down to create any suspense or have us get to know any of these characters. Yeah, it's a disaster flick, so we want to see some impressive, life-threatening scenes. But here, they're all pretty stagnant. There's nothing special to any of them. It's stuff we've seen before and done better. It's a real shame. To compound the fact, they didn't even put some characters in the middle of all of it that we liked. So it's just going through the motions of these sequences with random, annoying people running around and screaming in the middle of it all. Some of Dylan's feats really get pretty silly, even for an over-the-top disaster flick. Yeah, he just dives right in there. In the original, that killed someone. It's 95 minutes from an original cut of over 2 hours, supposedly. So that might be the reason why it feels like such a rushed movie. Maybe the 2-hour version is better and would have fleshed these characters out a bit more and given them some sort of story arcs, instead of them just being flat survivors making their way through the ship. Watching it the way it is, there does feel like some stuff's missing here. Oh, the one character I did kind of care for is Elena, since really she's the most likable person out of this entire group. Plus she's hot. The rest of them I couldn't have cared less about. Give me Red Buttons and Ernest Borgnine over any of these people any day.
Wait a minute, how the hell do you figure to go through the bottom of the boat? It's solid steel.
Aft, sir, at the outlet of the propeller shaft.
Look, kid, this isn't some toy boat in a bathtub, so you let us figure it out, huh?